Today, we're heading over to the Windy City, Chicago. Now, Chicago is known for its deep dish pizza, the Cubs, and unfortunately a bit of gang violence. But what happened on November 2nd, 2015, was something that left even the most hardened Chicagoans shaking their heads. This story is about a young lad named Tyshawn Lee, just 9 years old, who was lured into an alley and, well, let's just say things got very dark very fast. So grab your popcorn because this is one case that's as tragic as it is jaw-dropping. All right, so Tyshawn Lee, born on December 13th, 2005, a little fella from Auburn Gresham, a neighborhood in Chicago that's seen better days. His mom, Carla Lee, worked her socks off to give Tyshawn a good life, while his dad, Pierre Stokes, was involved with the Gangster Disciples, a detail that's going to be pretty important in a minute. Now, Tyshawn was your typical 9-year-old. He loved basketball, video games, and just being a kid. But living in Chicago, even kids can't escape the shadow of gang violence. Tyshawn's dad's connections to the Gangster Disciples would, unfortunately, seal his fate. Okay, let's fast forward to November 2nd, 2015. Tyshawn goes to school, and after that, he heads to his local park to play some hoops. Innocent enough, right? But then enters Dwright Boone-Doty, a member of the rival Black Pea Stones gang. Boone-Doty, who likes to go by Murder, which is just a lovely nickname, had a sinister plan. So Boone-Doty approaches Tyshawn with a juice box and a promise to play some basketball. Tyshawn, being a kid and all, follows him into an alley at 80th and Damon, and that's where things take a nasty turn. Boone-Doty, driven by a need for revenge against Tyshawn's father's gang, coldly executes the young boy. Multiple shots at close range. This was more than just a message, it was a statement in the cruelest way possible. The discovery of Tyshawn's body was heart-wrenching. The community was stunned, his mother Carla devastated. There were vigils, outpourings of grief and support, but also an undercurrent of rage. How could something like this happen to a child?
Police this morning trying to figure out if this was a case of a wrong person at the wrong time or if this was a targeted shooting.
No, not my baby no more. He a good kid. He don't deserve that. He don't deserve that.
Now, here's what we know from authorities. This 9-year-old was using this alley to get a shortcut from point A to point B. Now, police say that at about 4:30, an altercation broke out in this alley. Shots were fired, and that's when they found this 9-year-old boy on the ground with multiple shots to the upper body. That's when neighbors called the police. Investigators arrived on the scene, scoured the scene, collected evidence for hours, interviewed people trying to find a motive.
It is unclear if this was a targeted incident or a tragic case of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. At this time, we do not have a concrete motive, but we will be working around the clock to find out more.
Now, police do tell me that the shots that hit this little boy were at close range, but again, they don't have a motive at this time. They're still investigating, and there are no suspects identified.
The police began their investigation, but gang-related crimes, they're tough to crack. The whole no snitching culture makes it difficult. But this case, the murder of an innocent 9-year-old, pushed people to talk. The community and the cops were not going to let this one slide. So, the Chicago PD launched an all-out investigation. They pieced together the events, talking to witnesses, checking surveillance footage. It soon became clear that Tyshawn's murder was a calculated act of revenge. Detectives zeroed in on Boone-Doty and Corey Morgan, another Black Pea Stones member. Morgan had a bone to pick with the Gangster Disciples because his brother had been killed earlier that year. Boone-Doty and Morgan conspired to send a brutal message. Killing Tyshawn was their way of striking at their rivals. cruel and cowardly doesn't even begin to cover it. By November 2016, police had enough evidence to make arrests. Boone-Doty, already in custody for another crime, because of course he was charged with first-degree murder. Corey Morgan was also charged, accused of planning the whole thing and providing the gun. Their arrests brought a sense of relief, but also shone a light on just how deep the gang issues ran.
We begin tonight with breaking news. Murder charges tonight against the man police say executed 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee. Good evening, I'm Rob Johnson.
And I'm Erica Sargent. The fourth grader was shot multiple times after being lured into an alley by gang members. CBS 2's Mai Martinez is live in the newsroom with this breaking development. Mai.
Well, Rob and Erica, police arrested this man, Dwright Boone-Doty, back in November on an unrelated gun charge. Now sources tell me he is the man police believe targeted, lured, and executed Tyshawn Lee. It was in this alley that 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee was shot and killed execution style on November 2nd after being lured there from a nearby park. Then Superintendent Gary McCarthy had this to say about the crime.
It was an act of barbarism, the assassination of a 9-year-old child as a gang retaliation to get back at his father.
Chicago police later said detectives believe 3 men were responsible for the cold-blooded murder. Corey Morgan and Boone-Doty were picked up in late November on unrelated gun charges. Morgan and another man, Kevin Edwards, who is still on the run from police, were later charged with Tyshawn's murder. Morgan, who Tyshawn's mother knew, was ordered held on a $1 million bond.
I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
At the time, police said it wasn't clear which of the 3 men actually shot Tyshawn. But last week, investigators got credible information that Boone-Doty was the trigger man. Tyshawn's mother reacted to the news on social media today, saying detectives told her not only did Boone-Doty execute her son, but he had planned to torture him first. Boone-Doty was charged tonight with first-degree murder, and in addition to Tyshawn's murder, he's also charged in another murder and an attempted murder. Local, state, and federal law enforcement are scheduled to hold a press conference tomorrow. Live in the newsroom, Mai Martinez, CBS 2 News. Rob and Erica.
Mai, thank you.
The community hoped that justice for Tyshawn would send a message: no more senseless violence. But as we'll see, the fight against gang violence is like a game of whack-a-mole. You deal with one, another pops up. The trials of Boone-Doty and Morgan were the talk of the town. In October 2019, Boone-Doty was found guilty of first-degree murder. The evidence was rock solid. Witnesses, forensics, the whole shebang. Corey Morgan's trial followed. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of his involvement, and he too was found guilty. Both men faced the music for their horrific actions, but it was cold comfort to a grieving community.
Now on to other news. The 2 men convicted of executing 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee will be locked up behind bars for decades. Dwright Boone-Doty is a convicted trigger man. He was sentenced to 90 years. His accomplice, Corey Morgan, sentenced to 65. Prosecutors say in 2015 they lured Tyshawn Lee into an alley and shot him in order to get at his dad. They said he belonged to a gang that had shot Morgan's mom and brother. After Tyshawn's killers were led away in handcuffs, the young victim's mom and grandmother spoke out.
I'm just happy that I got justice today. I'm glad I got what I deserved. So I'm glad my son got what he deserved, and that's justice.
I'm satisfied, very much so. Happy and sad at the same time. You know, glad they're going away. I think this is the first day I thought about the other families, and I feel sorry for the moms and their siblings that's going through the same things we're going through despite their actions.
A third man, Kevin Edwards, drove the getaway car. He pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 25 years earlier this year.
Tyshawn Lee's murder was a wake-up call. It showed the extreme lengths gangs would go to. It spurred calls for action. And since then, there have been efforts to tackle gang violence from the roots, community programs, more police, the works. But it's an uphill battle. Tyshawn's story is a tragic reminder of what's at stake and why we must keep pushing for safer communities. So, that's the story of Tyshawn Lee. A heartbreaking case that shows just how senseless and cruel gang violence can be. But in remembering Tyshawn, we honor his memory by striving for a future where no child has to suffer such a fate.